It's William Zariski again, private investigator. For more information, visit willzpi.com. Now, we were talking on my last podcast about the Harrp and the bluebeam projects that the government has. And, I got to thinking, the enemy, Satan, and his cronies have basically, in the past 10 years, infiltrated every facet of life. Your automobile, the workplace, TV, your home. And all through this, for the use of government. Now, back to the technologies with Harrp. Similar technologies will be used in the private sectors and corporations, mixing the ELF waves with background music. It's kind of like a subliminal brainwash for employees or company propaganda to influence customers into buying products or to stop shoplifting. This idea also could be used for government officials during speeches. Once this is all online, it will allow unrestricted use of these frequencies in a mass control of the nation's minds. Now, an interesting point that Dr. Scott Johnson had discussed is why the U.S. government was so concerned with the mandatory conversion from analog to digital, the HDTV televisions in our homes. And the government subsidized about 90% of the cost, which estimated around $8 billion during a time of an imploding economy. With digital broadcasting, it would be very easy to manipulate a live image. This could be in place to broadcast false news reports, propaganda, or even a way to falsely accuse the innocent. There's a number of possibilities it could be used. Now, they know the older televisions won't be able to be manipulated with this technology, so basically we're forced again to convert to the digital technology, or nobody's watching anything. It was admitted by a large cable provider that they may have installed cameras into the digital boxes. So if you're watching TV, who's watching you? Now let's talk about Big Brother. Now, Project Bluebeam is to create a worldwide holographic image. It's created by satellites in space, beamed to where everyone can see. And this technology could be responsible for some UFO sightings. The purpose of the Bluebeam could be to project an image of God into the sky or outer space. For example, if they implemented this during the time, let's say around 2012, for example, the Muslims would see Muhammad, Christians would see Christ, New Agers would see Maitreya or whatever. And now another use, like I said before with the UFOs, it could be to stage a UFO visit or an invasion. Now this could also be accompanied by a false rapture. So folks, let's pay attention. Now, without getting into the mechanics of this technology or what it may be used for, let's remember, Jesus warned us not to be deceived. We're to watch out for these things in Matthew 24:42. So let's keep our focus on all these things. They're all linked together for the same agenda, and that's the message I'm going to keep telling you. These are pieces of the puzzle that are beginning to fit. The technical capability is in place. They can induce earthquakes, hurricanes, and they have the ability to force thoughts and images. Now let's talk about technology. But you, Daniel, close up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Minutes shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Daniel 12:4. That sounds exactly what's happening today. People are going to and fro, here and there. Knowledge is increasing rapidly. It wasn't until 1949 when the world's first jet, called the Comet, went into production. It had a top speed of about 490 miles per hour. Just 60 years later, we've created an aircraft, X-43 HyperX, which can travel over 6,750 miles an hour. Never before in history was that possible. Again, this is proof we're in the last stage. Technology has increased at an accelerating pace just in the 100 years, the past 100 years. Your car probably has more advanced technology than the Apollo 8 spacecraft. And information is advancing at such a rapid pace that you can't even retain. The definition of insanity is inability to understand. It's funny, this is the age, the information age and not the knowledge age. But how did we really get this technology? Let's look back into history regarding past technologies. There is evidence that the Mayans had pictures of our solar system thousands of years before the telescope was even invented. 6,000 years ago, the Sumerians had amazing knowledge of the solar system. To gain understanding of this, let's take a look in the book of Enoch. Enoch 7:1. And they took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one. They had begun to go into them, and mix with them, and taught them charms and enchantments, and made them acquainted with the cuttings of roots and of wood. It also says in Enoch 9:6 that the fallen angels revealed the external secrets in heaven. So I think that's where they've got the technology from these fallen angels, these demons, the Nephilim. I'll be talking about that more in some of my later podcast. But right now, we can live our day-to-day lives without the use of cash, thanks to technology. We use our ATM cards, credit cards, smart cards, MasterCard. MasterCard owns 51% of a company called Mondex that manufactures smart cards. What I find interesting is that the definition of monetary means pertaining to currency and dexter, the right side. Now, please don't think Mondex is the mark of the beast in Revelation 13:16. However, the technology certainly exists. It's part of conditioning us for a cashless society. These smart cards contain a microchip that can not only hold banking account information, but personal information as well. It may be that one day, after these cards are issued, they'll be able to access buildings and automobiles, computers, and hold medical records. As I mentioned in some of my earlier podcasts, RFID, radio frequency identification devices, the technology is here, and there are people already having these microchip implants inserted into their bodies voluntarily by injection. The way the chip works is it transmits a radio frequency that is read by a scanner. This technology is the technology that he's most likely to use to control the world. There's justification for the microchip. Think about it. You'll no longer have to carry a driver's license or an ATM card cash. You don't have to remember PIN numbers. You won't have to have car keys or wait in a checkout line. It'll be considered the cool thing to do. Through advertising, propaganda, they'll tell us this microchip will make our lives simpler. Sounds like a good thing, huh? The technology will help in locating lost children and the elderly. Though people not willing to get chipped may be forced into it by employers making it mandatory, or they'll lose their jobs. Just like there's people in the medical profession, if they don't get these vaccinations, they can't work. Same thing with this. And if someone does something wrong, they'll just turn the chip off. Total control here. All it would take is another major terrorist attack, and millions would line up like cattle to get chipped. Or the effects of hyperinflation could trigger the new currency that leads to the microchip. That could be an opportune time for the rapture to happen and the Antichrist to arise. I'm not a prophet, but I can tell you it's time to pay very close attention to what's going on and get right with Lord.